All right, Shalom. There's your brother Nahalia from the GMS Orlando camp. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasha Allah, and a sincere salutation to all Yuakim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Aquas, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. All right, now I want to go into a lesson through the Spirit, and I entitled it, The Book of Acts Again. All right, and this is Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. All right, and the reason that I entitled the lesson this is because when you look at the context of Yahweh Shai's walk, the apostles, the walk of Paul, it was a time that has many similarities to the time that we're in now. And a lot of our people, when they first come in, they want to bring all of Israel together. They want to save everybody. But the reality is that it was never like that. There's always been a split. You've always had 2/3, all right, who resist returning to Yahweh Shem Shai. You've always had 1/3. And then amongst the circumcision, you've always had division. All right. And what you see now is a product of the will of Yahweh Shem Shai. All right, this is Luke 12 and 51. Suppose ye that I have come to give peace on earth, I tell you nay, but rather division. Because when Yahweh Shai was on the earth, you had the scribes, you had the Pharisees, you had the Sadducees, you had the Zealots. They all knew they were Israelites. They all understood that they were Israelites, but they didn't all have the breath. All right, because when you go to Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, you jump down to verse 7, it reads, So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied, there was a noise, and behold, a shaking, and the bones came together, bone to his bone. And I beheld, lo, the sinews and the flesh came upon them, and the skin covered them above, but there was no breath in them. All right, now, what is this an analogy to? Of understanding who you are, of knowing who you are as an Israelite, but not necessarily knowing the wisdom of Yahweh Shema Shai. All right, because a popular saying in ancient Israel was bone of my bone. All right, for example, this is Genesis 29 and 13. It says, And it came to pass when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. And he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, Surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him the space of a month. All right, so when you go back to Ezekiel the 37th chapter, you see this saying, bone to his bone. All right, that's an analogy, of a family. So you have in these last days, those who understand that they're Israelites, but as you can see in verse 8, there's no breath in them. All right, when you deal with breath is the wisdom. All right, this is Wisdom of Solomon chapter 7. And I'll start at 24. It says, For wisdom is more moving than any motion. She passeth and goeth through all things by reason of her pureness. For she is the breath of the power of Yahweh Shema Shai, and a pure influence flowing from the glory of the Almighty. Therefore can no undefiled thing fall into her. So you have Israelites who know that they're Israelites, but they don't necessarily have the wisdom or the breath. All right, and this was happening during the time of Yahweh Shai. A lot of times when we read these things, as our apostle, the beloved apostle Gabar says often, you have to be a visionary. Understanding that you had Israelites, when you deal with the wicked scribes and Pharisees, they knew that they were Israelites, but they didn't necessarily have wisdom. They couldn't discern the times, as Yahweh Shah said. Let's get that. It's Matthew 16 and 1. The Pharisees also with the Sadducees came, and tempting desired him that he would show them a sign from heaven. And he answered and said unto them, When it is evening, ye say it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning it will be foul weather today, for the sky is red and lowering. O ye hypocrites, ye can discern the face of the sky, but can ye not discern the signs of the times? Keep in mind, these are individuals who know that they're Israelites, which means just knowing you're an Israelite doesn't automatically mean you have wisdom. And the Lord is plainly saying that, but when we come back to our heritage, Jake has this this zeal of waking up all of Israel and having everybody wake up and on the same type of timing, when that's just not how it's ever been when you really look at it. There's Luke chapter 12 and 51. Suppose ye that I am come to give peace on earth. I tell you nay, but rather division. And think about that. Yahushua was saying this during a time where there was division. You had the Zealots, who were Israelites, who wanted to violently resist Roman occupation. All right, you had the wicked scribes and Pharisees who enjoyed a relationship with the Romans and a certain privilege that came with it. All right. And you had the Pharisees. They believed one thing. They, when you go into the history, they were zealous for the law, but they created traditions above the law. And when I say above it, I mean like they added traditions to the law that wasn't the 613 commandments. And this is why Yahushua went into binding heavy burdens upon men. So when you think about the time of Yahushua, it was a lot of division. So this day and age should come as no surprise. Men who understand that they're Israelites, but their God is their belly. That was happening during the time of the apostles, of the time of Paul, the time of Yahushua. These things are not new. If anything, they're refreshed. As we think about what the Lord told Daniel. All right, this is Daniel chapter 12 and 13. But go thou thy way to the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. So Daniel wouldn't be alone in standing in his lot. Everybody would have to come back in their lot. The lot is cast into the lap. This is why the Lord said this in John the 6th chapter. In the 44th verse, it reads, no man can come to me except the Father which has sent me draw him, and I will raise him up at the last day. But that means everybody else has to come back. Those who were similar to the wicked scribes and Pharisees, who enjoyed a relationship in Babylon. They enjoyed a certain status in Babylon the Great, or I should say Rome during that time. And because they enjoyed a certain relationship, they didn't want to jeopardize it. Because Yahushua came into a world that was divided. You had the Pharisees with a relationship with Rome, that gave them a certain level of status. You had the Zealots who wanted to violently resist without having the discernment to realize the Lord had did it. The Lord put them in that condition. And instead of returning to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, they wanted to violently overthrow the government that the Lord had set up over them. These divisions were happening back then, and now they're manifesting themselves in similar ways in many ways when you look at it. All right, so I want to go through these examples through the Spirit to just highlight how there's no new thing under the sun. You're gonna have these things happen. You're gonna have guys who say the wildest things in the world, that are completely foreign and off. But it should come as no surprise because this is what they were dealing with in the time of Acts. All right, this is 2 Timothy chapter 2. I'm gonna start at 14. It says, of these things put them in remembrance, charging them before the Lord that they strive not about words to no profit, but to the subverting of the hearers. Because that was happening. You had guys who were basically very good orators, but it wasn't about sincerity. It wasn't in sincerity and in truth. It was really to subvert. All right. Now Paul says that whether it's preached out of subtlety or sincerely, roughly paraphrasing, either way the Lord is preached. All things work to the good of them that love Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. But it should come as no surprise that these things are happening in this day and age, because they were happening during that time. That's why I love through the Spirit going through the history, because it shows you, it makes it more personal. You start to realize it's just us in another day and age. It's just us in togas and a different type of society, but it's similar. It's the same mentality, the same Israelites coming back. And it's plain, especially the time that we're living in now with these divisions concerning doctrine, concerning what guys are out here doing as far as these other camps and what they're promoting. All of these things happened before and they're happening again. You have these anti-camp Israelites. The whole book of Acts is full of camps. when you really look at it, what is this? What is the wicked scribes and Pharisees? What are the zealots? They all knew that they were Israelites, but they were divided on doctrine. They were divided on faith when you really look at it. So this is 2 Timothy 2:15. It says, study to show thyself approved unto Yahweh Shemel Shai, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. And sometimes, studying isn't just your ability to recall. Sometimes studying gives you more context. It gives you more vision, understanding what our forefathers were actually going through during these times when these books were written, because you're living it. You're living through something similar. All of these things, there's nothing new under the sun. And this is, when you look at the letters of Paul, when you look at Yahweh Shai's walk and the things that he said, he was in a world where Jake had certain level of status. They had their own society, their own culture, but they were feigning themselves as being righteous. But their heart wasn't right with the Lord. Their intent wasn't right. But you had these divisions, the rich Israelites looking at the poor Israelites and looking down on them. The Israelites that are in power, that just loved the title. They didn't love the responsibility. All of those things happened in the book of Acts, all right, in the time of Yahweh Shai, and it's no different now. All right, so let's continue. This is Matthew chapter 23:1. It reads, then spake Yahweh Shai to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore whatsoever they bid you, observe. That observe and do. But do not ye after their works, for they say and do not. For they bind heavy burdens, and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do, for to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries, and enlarge the borders of their garments, and love the uppermost rooms at feast, and the chief seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. Now, this is very beautiful through the Spirit, because when you think about Yahweh Shai now, we understand the gravity of Yahweh Shai and his walk. But imagine Yahweh Shai in a world like this, where the scribes and the Pharisees in the eyes of most people during that time were established. These were the men that are looked at as the authority. And this is why Yahweh Shai said they sit in Moses' seat, which means they sat in a position of authority amongst us as a nation of people. You have to remember, in the context of the New Testament, you had many people that were named Yahweh Shai at a time. All right, that was a very popular name. And these were the guys that were established. These were the guys that were looked at as the righteous men. So for Yahweh Shai to come on the scene with the knowledge he had without going to these schools, all right, this is why they perceived the disciples to be ignorant and unlearned men. All right, because you had to go to school. But some men didn't have the ability. When you deal with the ancient customs, you were what your father was. So if your father was a carpenter, you were going to be a carpenter. That was a trade that you were taught. You were taught the family trade, but you had men who learned letters. They were men of letters. They were known because they had either the wealth or the position. They may have been a part of the sons of Aaron, whatever the case may be. But you had men of our nation who were dedicated to the laws, who were able to learn the laws, and that was their main occupation, if you will. So for Yahweh Shai to come on the scene, not having to go through those synagogues, but being able to teach them through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shai, it gave the glory to the Lord. But he was coming into a world where Jake had already had a society established, and he came right in the midst of that. That's why it says the stone that the builders refused. And all of these things really paint the context of what was happening during that time. When you look at what Yahweh Shai is saying in these statements, it's because he was coming on the scene in a world where it was already established. These are the righteous men. These are fishermen, and Yahweh Shai came through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shai to break all of that up. All right. And it's all through the spirit. All right. Because it was prophesied that they would reject him. All right, so Matthew 23:3, it reads, all therefore whatsoever they did, Salakia, all therefore whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do not ye after their works, for they say and do not. For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do for to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries, and enlarge the borders of their garments, and love the uppermost rooms at feast, and the chief seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But be not ye called Rabbi, for one is your master, even Hamashiach, and all ye are brethren. All right. Now going up to verse 6, it says, and love the uppermost rooms at feast and the chief seats in the synagogues. What does that remind you of? The club, VIP. You know, when you look at Negro, Latino, and Native American culture, just imagine that under us being Israelites, the same jealousy, the same competition, the same desire to stunt on the next guy. Imagine that with garments on. That's what Yahweh Shai had walked into, and this is why he was cutting them with his words and with the scriptures, because it was basically like a big competition, but it wasn't about the Lord. It's like the church, the modern church. People go there to hear the songs. They go there to see who has the big hat. They go there to hear the gossip, but they're not even in there for the Lord for the most part. You got some of them that sincerely lost, but for the most part, it's a big show. And this is why Yahushua said that they make broad their phylacteries, enlarge the borders of their garments, and they do these things to be seen of men. All right, you see similarities in what's happening today. You know, a lot of times when you look at the context, you know, Yahweh Shai during that time, many of our people believed on him, but you had a culture where he wasn't looked at by some Israelites as the Son of God. Let's be honest. You had many of our people that believed it, but then you had these guys that either believed it, but they didn't want him to reign, or they didn't believe it. This was the world he was walking into. And it's beautiful because they expected him to come on a cloud wearing purple, and he came lowly. And it was prophesied he would come lowly. All right. And this is why it's so beautiful through the spirit, because again, we're in a time where we're seeing these things play out in real life. And we're seeing a taste of what Yahweh Shai was dealing with when he was on the earth. All right. Now I want to bring this out. This is Acts chapter 4 and 13. And it reads, now when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, and perceived that they were unlearned and ignorant men, they marveled, and they took knowledge of them that they had been with Yahweh Shai. Now, why is that? Because for them to say the things that they said, they were confounding learned men who knew letters, and they were perceived to be unlearned and ignorant men. Nowadays, you know, when you think about the slander that comes from other camps against our elders, our apostles, you know, of our elders and our apostles, of brothers being the armpit of Israel, you know, these things are not new. These things are, matter of fact, let's get that. This is bear with me. This is Matthew chapter 10 and verse 24. The disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. It is enough for the disciple that he be as his master, and the servant as his Lord. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more shall they call them of his household? Fear them not, therefore, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, and hid that shall not be known. Because you think about, these were the things that were being said about Yahweh Shai while he was walking the earth. And he was explaining to the disciples at that time that if they did this to me, what do you think they're going to do to you? So you fast forward to 2024, and you have guys who are throwing around derelict and the armpit of Israel, and these guys are broke, when the conversation through the Spirit is about doctrine and conduct, you know. But all of these things must come to pass. All of these things, everybody has to come back in their life. Everybody has to, and it shows you through the Spirit a glimpse of what was happening during the time of Yahweh Shai. A lot of times we forget a lot of the hell that was being put on Yahweh Shai was by Israelites, which shows you knowing you're an Israelite isn't the finish line. Because they may know that they're Israelites, but they don't necessarily have breath in them. Just like the Lord said in Matthew the 16th chapter, you can discern the weather, but you can't discern the signs of the times. Wisdom will give you a level of discernment to see and recognize certain things, or not. All right. So when you look at the time of Acts, you start to see similarities in the time that we're living in now, and it really starts to make things even more clear when you look at what was happening. Because just imagine these OT Israelites having the ability to put brothers to death, or hand brothers over to the Romans. Because those things, that's how things played out. All right. Matter of fact, let's get the account of Stephen. All right, it's Acts chapter 7:1. Says, then said the high priest, are these things so? And he said, men, brethren, and fathers, hearken, the God of glory appeared unto our. Now he's going over the whole history. He's talking to Israelites, and he's cutting them. And we're going to read it all, because again, a lot of times it's easy to forget that this was a lot of family beef. This was a lot of infighting when you deal with the New Testament in general. It was Israelites who didn't believe on the Messiah. It was Israelites who didn't accept other Israelites who were returning to their heritage and their culture. Israelites who were putting traditions that they made up and adding it to what the Lord told us to do, and saying you got to keep this too. It was a lot of things going on, but it was all within the family, which shows you why the Lord had to give us a factory reset. We needed a reset. And even now, as Jake wakes up to who they are, you're seeing the similar things play out as they played out in the book of Acts. All right, so it's Acts 7:2. And he said, men, brethren, and fathers, hearken. The God of glory appeared unto our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Charan, and said unto him, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, and come into the land which I shall show thee. Then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans, and dwelt in Charan. And from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land wherein ye now dwell. He gave him none inheritance in it, no, not so much as to set his foot on. Yet he promised that he would give it to him for a possession, and to his seed after him, when as yet he had no child. And spoke, and Yahweh Shai spake on this wise, that his seed should sojourn in a strange land, and that they should bring them into bondage, and entreat them evil for 100 years. And as a sidebar, that's Egypt, that's not America. All right, and the nation to whom they shall be in bondage will I judge, said Yahweh Shai. And after that they shall come forth and serve me in this place. And he gave him the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham begat Isaac, and circumcised him the 8th day. And Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat the 12 patriarchs. And the patriarchs, moved with envy, sold Joseph into Egypt. But Yahweh Shai was with him, and delivered him out of all his afflictions, and gave him favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And he made him governor over Egypt and all his house. Now there came a dearth over all the land of Egypt and Canaan, Salakia, and great affliction, and our fathers found no sustenance. But when Jacob heard that there was corn in Egypt, he sent out our fathers first. And at the second time Joseph was made known to his brethren, and Joseph's kindred was made known unto Pharaoh. Then sent Joseph and called his father Jacob to him, and all his kindred, 60 and 15 souls. So Jacob went down into Egypt and died, he and our fathers, and were carried over into Shechem, and laid in the sepulchre that Abraham bought for a sum of money of the sons of Emor, the father of Shechem. But when the time of the promise drew nigh, which God had sworn to Abraham, the people grew and multiplied in Egypt, till another king arose, which knew not Joseph. The same dealt subtly with our kindred, and evil entreated our fathers, so that they cast out their young children, to the end they might not live. In which time Moses was born, and was exceeding fair, and nourished up in his father's house 3 months. And when he was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter took him up, and nourished him for her own son. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of Egyptians, and was mighty in words and in deeds. And when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel. And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended him, and avenged him that was oppressed, and smote the Egyptian. For he supposed his brethren would have understood how that God by his hand would deliver them, but they understood not. And the next day he showed himself unto them as they strove, and would have set them at one again, saying, Sirs, ye are brethren, why do ye wrong one to another? But he that did his neighbor wrong thrust him away, saying, Who made thee a ruler and a judge over us? Wilt thou kill me as thou didst the Egyptian yesterday? Then fled Moses at this saying, and was a stranger in the land of Midian, where he begat 2 sons. And when 40 years were expired, there appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai an angel of the Lord in a flame of fire in a bush. When Moses saw it, he wondered at the sight. And as he drew near to behold it, the voice of the Lord came unto him, saying, I am the God of thy fathers, the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then Moses trembled, and durst not behold. Then said the Lord to him, Put off thy shoes from thy feet, for the place where thou standest is holy ground. I have seen the affliction of my people, which is in Egypt, and I have heard their groaning, and am come down to deliver them. And now come, I will send thee into Egypt. This Moses whom they refused, saying, Who made thee a ruler and a judge? The same did God send to be a ruler and a deliverer by the hand of the angel which appeared unto him in the bush. Now, as a sidebar, this is beautiful because Stephen is pointing out that Moses was initially rejected. You know, Jake was stiff-necked, man. They resisted order. Now, watch how he takes it. Verse 36 says, He brought them out. I'm going to read this again. Acts 7:35, because this is how they operate with Yahweh Shai. All right. This is Acts 7:35. This Moses, whom they refused, saying, Who made thee a ruler and a judge? The same did the Most High send to be a ruler and a deliverer by the hand of the angel which appeared to him in the bush. He brought them out after that he had showed wonders and signs in the land of Egypt, and in the Red Sea, and in the wilderness 40 years. That this is that Moses which said unto the children of Israel, A prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto you of your brethren, like unto me. Him shall ye hear. And it's beautiful because they rejected Moses, the Lord chose. And then we know, according to prophecy, the stone which the builders refused. All right. And I'll get that when we complete this. All right. So Acts 7:37 again says, This is that Moses which said unto the children of Israel, A prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto you of your brethren, like unto me. Him shall ye hear. This is he that was in the church of the wilderness with the angel, which spake to him in the Mount Sinai, and with our fathers, who received the lively oracles to give unto us, to whom our fathers would not obey, but thrust him from them, and then their hearts turned back again into Egypt, saying unto Aaron, Make us gods to go before us. For as for this Moses which brought us out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And they made a calf in those days, and offered sacrifice unto the idol, and rejoiced in the works of their own hands. Then the Most High turned and gave them up to worship the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets. O ye house of Israel, have ye offered to me slain beasts and sacrifices by the space of 40 years in the wilderness? Yea, ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. Our fathers had the tabernacle of witness in the wilderness, as he had appointed, speaking unto Moses that he should make it according to the fashion that he had seen, which also our fathers that came after brought it in with Yahushai into the possession of the Gentiles, whom God drave out before the face of our fathers into the days of David. All right, because Yahushai and Joshua, all right, Joshua is Yahushai. It's the same name. All right, this is why we refer to Yahushai as Yahushai HaMashiach. All right, Yahushai, the anointed. All right, verse 46 reads, who found favor before the Most High and desired to find a tabernacle for the power of Jacob. But Solomon built him an house. Howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands, as saith the prophet. Heaven is my throne and earth is my footstool. And what house will ye build me, saith the Lord, or what is the place of my rest? Have not my hand made all these things? Ye stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears, ye do always resist the Holy Spirit, as your fathers did, so do ye. Which of the prophets have not your fathers persecuted? And they have slain them which showed before of the coming of the just one, of whom ye have been now the betrayers and murderers, who have received the law by the disposition of angels, and have not kept it. All right, so he was going through it and he was cutting them. But this was Israelites, which shows you that just knowing you're Israelite doesn't necessarily, it's not the finish line. All right, all of these guys, when you look at Acts, the 7th chapter, the ones that put Stephen to death, they knew they were Israelites. They knew they were Israelites. All right, and they still put him to death because you had these divisions during that time. All right, and these things are going to play out again. They're already playing out. All right, but they're going to play out, they're going to increase, even when you deal with the Roman persecution. So in the midst of Roman persecution, in the midst of the zealots attacking Roman soldiers and, sparking this war between Rome, you had these divisions amongst Jake in the land of Israel during that time. So you had infighting, and then you had the Romans that were coming down, that the Lord was setting up to come down and get us out of that land. Now, when you fast forward to 2024 through the Spirit, Jake is waking up to being an Israelite, but you're going to see these same similar divisions again because everybody's coming back in their lot. All right, let's go here. This is Luke chapter 13 and 34, and it reads, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, which killest the prophets and stonest them that are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, as a hen doth gather her brood under her wings, and ye would not. So our people have a reputation of killing the prophets. All right. Now you can say in words, in so many words, it's happening again. All right, whether it's the slander, and eventually, it's going to be literal persecution. But these things are all playing out as they did during the time of Acts. All of these things, there's nothing new under the sun. And these things are a shadow of things that were happening in the book of Acts. We read those things, but now through the Spirit, the Lord has opened up this truth so much that you're starting to see Israelites come back into their various lots. All right, now I want to bring this out in the David Guzik commentary. This is from Matthew 23, 5 through 10. It says, they do their works to be seen, and they live for the praise of men. All right, so right here it says this. The religious leaders were guilty of advertising their righteous deeds. They acted out the religious spirit Yahushua spoke against in the Sermon on the Mount. All right, now jumping down, it says this. It was natural for these religious leaders to believe that broader phylacteries and larger borders on their garments showed them to be more spiritual. The idea of wearing the phylacteries and the special borders of their garments were obedience to what Yahweh Shah commanded Israel under the covenant given at Mount Sinai. The use of those things to promote an image of super spirituality was the fault of human sinfulness, not of the command itself. All right, so they were doing it to have this appearance. And it reminds me of the modern church where it's all about how you dress, how well you sing, and just being there for the gossip and the fellowship, and I use that with quotation marks. But it wasn't about Yahweh Shema Shai. All right. Matter of fact, this is Zechariah chapter 8 and verse 16. It says, "These are the things that ye shall do. Speak ye every man the truth to his neighbor. Execute the judgment of truth and peace in your gates. And let none of you imagine evil in your hearts against his neighbor. And love no false oath. For all these things, for all these are things that I hate, saith the Lord." All right. So it deals with the sincerity of heart, because we're not justified by the law. But during the time of Yahweh Shai, you had men that were justifying themselves by the laws that they could actually keep. Whilst, we can't keep them all perfect. And as the scriptures say, you break one, you break them all. But Jake's confidence during that time was solely built on the laws that they could actually keep. And this was it was a culture. You have to remember, everybody knew that they were Israelites back then. So it wasn't a foreign thing to see a guy with fringes on. But you had all of these divisions happening in the midst of that. Those who wanted to violently overthrow Rome, which is why Paul wrote in Romans the 13th chapter what he wrote, because the Lord has set that up. So, but they all knew that they were Israelites, but they didn't all necessarily have the discernment, the breath, the wisdom. And the reason I want to go through this through the Spirit is to highlight that in these times, you're going to have similar scenarios. These things are going to play out again, where everybody who understands that they're Israelite doesn't necessarily have the breath. This is why our apostles talk about this not being a club, because again, during that time of Acts, you had Jake who loved the upper rooms. They loved the big festivals, and that's what they showed up for. It wasn't about serving the Lord in sincerity and truth. It was a culture. It was an Israelite culture, but it wasn't necessarily in the spirit of sincerity. All right, and those things are going to play out again. All right, so this should come as no surprise. All right, so Lord willing, this was edifying. With that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory. You know what? Let me get this before, because I just remembered. So Psalms 118 and 22. I'll start at 21. I will praise thee, for thou hast heard me, and art become my salvation. The stone which the builders refused is become the head stone of the corner. All right. And this was Yahweh Shai. All right. We know this to be Yahweh Shai. All right. This is Matthew chapter 21 and 42. Because when he was walking the earth, you had those who acknowledged him as the Son of God, but then you had those who refused him. And it's beautiful that Stephen, made that comparison of how Moses was initially refused, but he was still chosen by Yahweh Shema Shai, just like Yahweh Shai was. But he was persecuted by those who knew that they were Israelites, but that wanted his place. All right. And if he was persecuted that way, his followers are going to be persecuted in like manner. All right. This is Matthew 21 and 42. Yahweh Shai saith unto them, did ye never read in the scriptures, the stone which the builders rejected, the same is become the head of the corner. This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. And it is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore say unto you, the kingdom of God shall be taken from you and given to a nation, bringing forth the fruits thereof. All right. And that is the Israelite foreigners. All right. Because he was talking to, let's go up. This is Matthew 21 And I'm jumping down to Jumping down to 23, it says, and when he came into the temple, the chief priests and the elders of the people came unto him as he was teaching, and said, by what authority doest thou these things? And who gave thee this authority? So this is who he's talking to. And he's saying, look, you guys, your position is going to be taken from you. All right. And when it says another nation, it's not talking about a literal another nation of people. All right. It's talking about those Israelite foreigners that the Lord would call back into the fold. All right, those Israelites that were in a Greek Hellenist state of mind, the Lord's going to call them back. All right, the praise was perfected in the mouth of babes. All right, and when you go into this word nation, it says ethnos. All right, ethnos. It says a multitude, whether of men or of beasts, associated or living, a company, troop, swarm, a multitude of the individuals of the same nature or genus, the human family, says a tribe, nation, people, group. All right, says Paul uses the term for Gentile Christians, which are Israelites that were in that state of mind. All right, because they were not regarded as Israelites by the ruling class of Israel during that time. And it's beautiful because the Lord just said, like, all right, I'm going to take those Israelites that you look down upon and I'm going to perfect praise in them. And the church, the order that was established during that time, the Lord was like, look, I'm going to, nah, because they loved the title. They didn't love the responsibility. It wasn't about the responsibility. It was about their title and their position. As a matter of fact, this is John 11, and I will jump down to verse 47. It says, then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, what do we? For this man doeth many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. So they were considering their position. All right. And this is why ultimately everything played out according to prophecy. But this highlights how there was all of these divisions during the time of Yahushua, and that nowadays it should come as no surprise. All right. So Lord willing, this was edifying. With that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasha Allah, and a sincere salutation to all Yuakian, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. Shalom.